trip. We'd go on vacation to, a couple of times we went up to Vermont near right on Lake Champlain, and we'd go to Cape Cod, up in the Eastham area. He had been a baseball player at Holy Cross in the 30s, and he played in the Cape Cod Baseball League. And he had a lot of friends up in the area that we'd always visit when we were there, so that was kind of interesting. And very often we'd go from New Haven to Hammonasset for a day in the summer, and we would make an annual pilgrimage from New Haven to Hartford to do our Christmas shopping at G. Fox Company. I mean, we'd get in the car and drive up Route 5 to Vermont or out, to the Cape. I can't remember, a lot of stops along the way, but we do have some photographs, obviously either coming or going from Vermont. We stopped at least once in Santaland in Putney, Vermont. I've got a photograph of my sister and I in front of, the white painted North Pole right in the center of the Santaland.
First of all, I want to say that we are tireless road trippers. We always insist on taking family trips in the car. The few times we've taken trips in a plane, we feel like it takes just as long, if not longer, and there are delays and you don't have the opportunity to get off and stumble upon things and just find the unexpected. So I think from an early age, my kids have always been used to these incredibly long road trips in the car. And people say, how do you do it? And I say, I think it's just that has been always the expectation. We often go up to Moosehead Lake in Maine, which is about an 8-hour trip, which at this point doesn't seem like a long trip.
Well, it was in 1953. My aunt and uncle were the ones with the car in the family. Mm-hmm. So any time we really went anywhere beyond the limits of the buses in New Haven, either with my aunt and uncle or with some other family member. Mm-hmm. And they went to Florida every year with their children for 3 months. And they used to take along, first with my sister and my cousin, because they were the older bunch. But by 1953, I was eligible. And we went to Florida, a cousin of mine with the 2 cousins that were actually my aunt and uncle's children. And we did drive down. They did that each year. They left the trailer there. They lived in a trailer while in Florida. And they left the trailer there all the time and stored. It was in Hollywood Beach, Florida. And we all piled into the car and went down. I guess at that point it was Route 1, mm-hmm. probably, or the beginnings of 95. They had certain spots along the way they used to stop, and they were kind of known in, because of course you had to come back up the same route. Mm-hmm. So off we went. It was in January 1953. We had to enroll in school down there because we were staying for 3 months.
For the Hershey visits, Sturgis Pretzel Factory, which is this wonderful, very hands-on place where you get to see people making pretzels, get keychains.
All right.
And they were very good pretzels. And so all of that was fun.
My father's a traveling salesman for many years in eastern Canada, northeastern part of the United States. So he loved to get behind the wheel and drive, as I do still. So, and we also had a station wagon, a wonderful old Ford Galaxy that schlepped us around. We also had a Buick Skylark wagon at one time. So it wasn't uncommon for us to go to Cape Cod, to Cooperstown, New York, to the Baseball Hall of Fame, to Lake George, to go up to Santa's Village in Vermont, to see Old Man in the mountain in New Hampshire, go to York, Maine, and rent a cottage and get in that icy cold waters. So we traveled through much of the Northeast, and we like to take the blue highways, the back roads especially, not just the main interstates. We didn't have to get there on deadline.
One of the things that we like to do is put enough gas in the car, just enough to get us to New Jersey, and therefore, because the gas prices are cheaper in New Jersey, so roughly around about the first or second rest stop on the Jersey Turnpike, that's when we'll gas up. for the duration of the ride.
Bagel Beach was one of the nicknames because it was mostly Jewish people who went there. It had several restaurants. The one that was very well known was called Sloppy Joe's, and that, I mean, I said in my day, I went there, of course, as a teenager, and you were there. You go swimming all day. You rent a locker, you change, and at night you have supper at Sloppy Joe's, and you hang around, and even 11, 12 o'clock you went back in for a Coke or something, The place, I don't know when it ever closed.
The first car I remember was a 49 Ford sedan, and after that, everything my father bought was a Buick, right up until his last car, I think, he bought in the mid-'80s. He had a big Buick Roadmaster, 1953 Roadmaster. It was gray with a white top, and it was pretty comfortable. It had a big trunk, and it had the big shelf behind the back seat, which no car has nowadays. That was always packed with stuff.
Yeah, there are two places that we usually stop. One in the DC area, there's this place that's called, well, I guess 20 years ago it was a bus, where these guys would basically cook out of the back of a bus, and they would, this was along Indian Head Highway, in the Suitland, in the Indian Head Highway View area of Maryland. But we would stop there and definitely get food. And then if we're going further south, Florida, because my wife's family is from Georgia, there's a spot in Jacksonville that's well known called Jenkins Barbecue. And that's a place where we always have to go when we're in that area to get food. And even when we're coming back, they sell these huge jugs of barbecue sauce that we'll load up on barbecue sauce and all that stuff to come back home.
So those are from Hershey. One's a little recipe booklet, one's the story of how chocolate is made, and just the welcome.
On our way down, we would see the Tabletop Pie Company on the Berlin Turnpike, and it was probably just a little offshoot store or something, maybe an outlet store. But we were thrilled. As kids, we would all be able to pick out our own tabletop pies. They're little individual ones, about this big, and we would pick them out, and we'd take them with us down to our vacation.
We actually would try to dine at some of the chains. I loved Howard Johnson growing up, and I think it was the ice cream that really drew me in, but some of those other types of foods, beef stroganoff, I guess was called beef burgundy or whatever they had on the menu, or some type of fried fish sandwich would be a big deal, in the onion rings. Nothing that I think a self-respecting adult should probably eat these days, but it was fun back then when you could handle the calories. Also, I think we went to in New England to farm shops where we can to get an Abigail sandwich or the farm shops to get a fish-a-majig or a big beef or a watermelon sherbet cooler.
For some reason we always end up coming back with more, because when you go home, people want to give you stuff, or you want to take stuff home, and you end up having more stuff than you leave your original home.
The Seminole villages, the Seminole Indians. I remember I had a jacket which was all embroidered and beaded, etc., in the Seminole designs. I probably bought a little doll that was a Seminole doll too, but I don't know where she ever got to. But I'm pretty sure I would have bought the doll as a souvenir.
When you take a road trip, you get to see everything from point A to point B, but when you're on an airplane, you just kind of fly over and skip everything in between where you are and where you want to go. So the road trip is more of like, kind of like a process of getting there. You got to figure out like where you're going to stop for food, and you got to figure out what roads you're going to take. But with an airplane, it's just you get on and then you're there where you want to be. But it's not like that.
There's always something interesting. If you don't find something interesting in a particular region, it's really that you aren't looking hard enough for it.